second wave of device explosions killed 20 in Lebanon. North Korea tests new tactical ballistic missiles. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. I'm Shuhaida Arifin and you're watching World Today. A second wave of device explosions killed 20 people and wounded more than 450 others in Hezbollah strongholds in Lebanon, stoking fears of an all-out war with Israel. A source close to Hezbollah said walkie-talkies used by its members blew up in its Beirut stronghold, with state media reporting similar blasts in south and east Lebanon. AFP TV footage showed people running for cover when an explosion went off during a funeral for Hezbollah fighters in South Beirut in the afternoon. They came a day after a simultaneous explosion of hundreds of paging devices used by Hezbollah killed 12 people, including 2 children, and wounded up to 2,800 others across Lebanon in an unprecedented attack blamed on Israel. Israeli officials have remained tight-lipped about the explosions that led the television news bulletins and dominated newspaper headlines. Amos Harel of the left-leaning Haaretz newspaper said the pager and walkie-talkie blasts had put Israel and Hezbollah on the brink of all-out war. Lebanese Foreign Minister Abdullah Bouhabib warned that the blatant assault on Lebanon's sovereignty and security was a dangerous development that could signal a wider war. Hezbollah said Israel was fully responsible for this criminal aggression and vowed revenge. The influx of so many casualties all at once overwhelmed hospitals in Hezbollah strongholds. Meantime, residents of Sidon in southern Lebanon said that they are scared of using batteries after more devices exploded across the country. The blasts triggered by detonations in handheld radios and other devices have heightened anxiety about potential new threats.
ما توقعت اللي صار اليوم، يعني اليوم رجعنا فهمت كيف انه كمان رجعت عم تنعاد الكرة. كان عندنا شوية أجهزة، نحن بنعرف إنه هذه الأجهزة فهمت كيف إنه 100% ممكن ما يكون مالها شيء، بس كمان على صحة السلامة شلناها من هالمحل لأنه عتلنا هم. عدونا غدار والله يهدي البال، وهذا اللي بنقوله.
Mahmoud Kashkash, a Syrian president of Sidon, said rumors are spreading about the safety of everyday items like lithium batteries and solar panels.
صار يطلع شوية إشاعات إنه الهواتف والبطاريات الليثيوم والطاقة إنه عم ينفجروا وإلى ذلك، فنحن إذا عندي يعني مثلا أنا واحد من الناس إذا عندي بالبيت طاقة أو على البطارية ليثيوم أكيد بدي أفصلها على الإشاعات، رغم إنه بجوز مش مزبوطة، بس واحد بيضل بيخاف.
The UN chief, meanwhile, was deeply alarmed by the large number of communication devices exploded across Lebanon. Antonio Guterres said civilian objects should not be weaponized.
I think it's very important that there is an effective control of civilian objects, not to weaponize civilian objects. That should be a rule that everywhere in the world governments should be able to implement.
He also urged all concerned actors to exercise maximum restraint to avert any further escalation and urged the parties to recommit to the full implementation of Security Council Resolution 17-1/2006 and immediately return to a cessation of hostilities to restore stability. Meanwhile, Japanese radio equipment maker ICOM Incorporated said it was investigating the facts regarding news reports that two-way radio devices bearing its logo have exploded in Lebanon. Images of the exploded walkie-talkies showed labels with ICOM and Made in Japan. Tokyo Stock Exchange listed ICOM said in a statement that it would release update information on the matter as it becomes available on its website. Saudi Arabia's de facto ruler said that the kingdom will not establish ties with Israel until a Palestinian state has been created, in a blow to U.S. efforts to seal a normalization deal.
الأخوة والأخوات، تتصدر القضية الفلسطينية اهتمام بلادكم، ونجدد رفض المملكة وإدانتها الشديدة جرائم السلطة الاحتلال الإسرائيلية بحق الشعب الفلسطيني، متجاهل القانون الدولي والإنساني في فصل جديد ومرير من المعاناة. ولن تتوقف المملكة عن عملها الدؤوب في سبيل قيام دولة فلسطينية مستقلة وعاصمتها القدس الشرقية، ونؤكد أن المملكة لن تقيم علاقات دبلوماسية مع إسرائيل دون ذلك. ونتوجه بالشكر إلى الدول التي اعترفت بالدولة الفلسطينية تجسيدا للشرعية الدولية، ونحث باقي الدول على القيام بخطوات مماثلة.
The Crown Prince made the remarks at an annual speech to the Advisory Shura Council, which he gave on behalf of his father, King Salman. After the eruption of war last October between Israel and Hamas that rules Gaza, Saudi Arabia put on ice US-backed plans for the kingdom to normalize ties with Israel in a swift reordering of its diplomatic priorities. The high civilian death toll wreaked by Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza and the immense destruction caused to the Palestinian territory have put immense pressure on the kingdom to hold back from any major diplomatic opening. The United Nations General Assembly on Wednesday adopted a Palestinian-drafted resolution that demands Israel end its unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory within 12 months. There were 124 votes in favor, 14 against, and notable 43 abstentions, with the Palestinian delegation heralding the adoption as historic. The action isolates Israel days before world leaders travel to New York for their annual UN gathering. The resolution welcomes a July advisory opinion by the International Court of Justice that said Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories and settlements is illegal and should be withdrawn. The General Assembly resolution also calls on states to take steps towards seizing arms provisions to Israel when there are reasonable grounds to suspect that they may be used in the occupied Palestinian territory. The resolution is the first to be formally put forward by the Palestinian Authority since it gained additional rights and privileges this month. Israel captured the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem, areas of historic Palestine, which the Palestinians want for a state in the 1967 Middle East War, and has since built settlements in the West Bank and steadily expanded them. United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati in Cairo on Wednesday to discuss bilateral ties and prospects of a Gaza ceasefire. Earlier in the day, Blinken also met Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who told him that Cairo rejects any attempts at escalation in the region and supports Lebanon following the blasts. Blinken is visiting Egypt hoping to advance efforts to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza and strengthen ties with Cairo. He also said the U.S. was committed to strengthening ties with Cairo in a meeting. Blinken warned against a risk of escalation in West Asia after the detonation of thousands of Hezbollah devices threatened to derail his latest regional diplomacy push. Blinken's visit comes as the region remains on high alert due to the risk of war expanding, particularly after Hezbollah promised to retaliate against Israel, accusing it of detonating pages and walkie-talkie across Lebanon. The United States was still gathering facts. Blinken said it was in no one's interest for conflict to spread. Coming up next, Russia warns Stoltenberg over dangerous red line comments. North Korea tested new tactical ballistic missiles using super-large warheads and modified cruise missiles on Wednesday, led by leader Kim Jong-un. According to a report by state news agency KCNA, Kim had earlier called for stronger conventional weapons and nuclear capabilities. Still photographs released by KCNA showed Kim watching missile test and holding a rifle, which was believed to be developed by the Academy of Defense Sciences, according to the state media. KCNA was likely reporting on the firing of multiple short-range ballistic missiles on Wednesday, reported by the South Korean military, which was the second time the North test launched missiles in a week. Last week, North Korea also unveiled a uranium enrichment facility in the first such public report ever. KCNA said Wednesday tests involved the new tactical ballistic missile Hwasongpo 11 DA 4.5, indicating it was part of a series of short-range ballistic missiles it had been developing. Some of the missiles are even believed to have been exported to Russia. The Kremlin on Wednesday described comments by Jens Stoltenberg, the outgoing head of NATO, involving missile strikes as dangerous. Stoltenberg had said a decision by the US to allow Ukraine to use Western long-range weapons to strike Russia would not be a red line that would prompt an escalation by Moscow. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been pleading with allies for months to let Ukraine fire Western missiles, including long-range US ATACMS and British Storm Shadows, into Russia to limit Moscow's ability to launch attacks. Stoltenberg dismissed a warning by Russian President Vladimir Putin last week that letting Ukraine use such weapons to strike deep inside Russian territory would mean the West was directly fighting Russia. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters that Stoltenberg's remarks were dangerous. He said this ostentatious desire not to take seriously the Russian president's statement is a move that is completely short-sighted and unprofessional. Peskov added that Stoltenberg's position is extremely provocative and dangerous. Senior Russian politicians and foreign policy hawks have suggested that Moscow could respond with nuclear weapons. Sri Lanka's presidential candidates wrapped up their campaigning on Wednesday ahead of the vote on Saturday. Current President Ranil Wickremesinghe told supporters that Sri Lanka's economy would have sunk were it not for his leadership. On the other hand, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa told his supporters that this is the winning party, with Wickremesinghe and left-wing candidate Anura Kumara Desanayake well below his numbers. Over 17 million Sri Lankans will vote, seeking a leader who can address corruption and revitalize the economy as the country faces its worst financial crisis in more than 7 decades. The economic collapse, blamed largely on a former president, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, was triggered by a sharp decline in foreign exchange reserves, which crippled imports of essentials and ignited protests that led to his ousting. Wickremesinghe, who was elected by parliament after Rajapaksa's ouster, has overseen a fragile recovery supported by a $2.9 billion IMF bailout and a $25 billion debt restructuring plan. However, recovery has come at the cost of economic hardship, fueling demands for political change. Jorge Rodriguez, a key figure in the ruling Socialist Party and a president of the National Assembly, said on Wednesday that Venezuela opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez willingly signed a letter accepting the court ruling confirming Maduro's victory. The statement made during a press conference in Caracas comes as Gonzalez, who stood against President Nicolas Maduro in July's election, said on Wednesday he was forced to sign the document which recognized Maduro's victory. Gonzalez is currently in Spain, where he was granted political asylum earlier this month following the issue of a warrant for his arrest in Venezuela. In a video shared by the Venezuelan government, Gonzalez can be seen boarding an aircraft with a Spanish flag on its side the night he left the country. Rodriguez also showed photographs of an alleged meeting between himself, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, and Gonzalez at the Spanish embassy in Caracas on the eve of his departure. According to Rodriguez, the signing took place that day. Venezuela Supreme Court ruled Maduro won the election, which took place on 28 July, even as members of the opposition published vote tallies online, which they said showed Gonzalez had won. Colombia's government has called off peace talks with leftist rebel group, the National Liberation Army ELN. Its peace delegation said on Wednesday that the decision was made following an attack which killed 2 soldiers and injured more than 2 dozen. The development is another devastating blow to President Gustavo Petro's cornerstone total peace policy, which he looked to remove the ELN from its role in the Andean country's 6 decades of internal armed conflict. The government restarted negotiations with the ELN at the end of the 2022 and held 6 rounds of talks with a rebel group in Mexico, Cuba, and Venezuela. Now, during these months, the government has made multiple proposals to the ELN. However, the government said the peace effort's viability has been severely damaged, and its continuity can only be recovered with an unequivocal manifestation of the ELN's will for peace. The attack, which caused the talks to be suspended, took place on Tuesday in a rural area of Colombia's Arauca province, which borders Venezuela. The talks had been in crisis for months after the government decided to begin separate negotiations with a unit in the southwest of the country that had split from the rest of the ELN. Peruvian President Dina Boluarte declared a state of emergency in 3 regions affected by devastating forest fires. The fires have burned through swathes of the nation's Andean and Amazonian croplands and left 16 dead. The heavily forested northern regions of Amazonas, San Martin and Ucayali will be under the new emergency measures following several requests from local authorities for more resources to be allocated to fight the fires. Speaking at the government palace, the president said Peru had registered 238 fires across most of its regions. Some 80% of these were controlled. The Health Ministry informed that since July 15 to date, 155 people have been reported to have suffered health problems linked to the fires, of which 15 have died. Satellite data analyzed by Brazil's Space Research Agency earlier this month registered a record 346,112 fire hotspots across South America so far this year. It surpassed the 2007 record of 345,322 hotspots in a data series that goes back to 1998. Sean Diddy Combs was denied bail for a second time on Wednesday after the rapper and music mogul was arrested on sex trafficking and racketeering charges. In announcing their charges, prosecutors accused Combs, one of hip-hop's biggest names, of using his fame to coerce women into demeaning sexual acts as part of a long-running scheme of sex trafficking and racketeering. Combs, 54, pleaded not guilty in Manhattan federal courts hours after the 14-page indictment was unsealed. Combs faces a sentence of up to life in prison and a minimum of 15 years if convicted of the 3 felony counts. The indictment did not specify how many women were alleged victims. It contained no allegation that Combs himself directly engaged in unwanted sexual contact with women, though he was accused of assaulting them by punching, kicking, dragging, and throwing objects. Also known during his career as P. Diddy and Puff Diddy, Combs founded Bad Boy Records and is credited with helping turn rappers and R&B singers such as Mary J. Blige, Faith Evans, Notorious B.I.G. and Usher into stars in the 1990s and 2000s. Still to come in sports, Italian World Cup striker Schillaci dies, aged 59.
Sentiasa
Inter Milan escaped Etihad Stadium with a surprise goalless draw against Premier League heavyweights Manchester City in the Champions League earlier today, exacting a small measure of revenge for their narrow loss to City in the 2023 final. Both teams squandered numerous chances in a breathless back-and-forth affair. Pep Guardiola's City were largely stalled by Inter's impressive discipline in defence, while Simone Inzaghi's Inter, who were dangerous on the break on a nervy night for both sides, lacked in finishing. Erling Haaland, seeking his 100th goal for the hosts, was largely kept quiet, and both sides had chances to make the breakthrough but were unable to capitalise. City lost Kevin De Bruyne to injury at half-time, and Phil Foden fired straight at Inter goalkeeper Jan Sommer with their best chance. Henrik Mkhitaryan could have won it for Inter while he blazed over 15 minutes from time, allowing City to extend their unbeaten run in the competition to 24 matches, one of the records set by Manchester United between 2007 and 2009. PSG were grateful to a last-minute howler from goalkeeper Paulo Gazzaniga as they snatched a 1-0 win over European debutant Girona. PSG had over 60% possession and 24 attempts on goal, but looked set to be left frustrated by their opponents at the Parc des Princes until a low Nuno Mendes cross squirmed under Gazzaniga and into the net in the 90th minute. It was a harsh ending to their Champions League bow for Girona, who qualified for Europe for the first time in their history after a historic third-place finish in La Liga last season. PSG missed chance after chance in the second half and looked set to draw another continental blank. However, the late goal allowed Luis Enrique's team to continue their perfect start to the campaign as they aim to go further than last season's run to the semis and win European football's biggest prize for the first time. Elsewhere, English winger Jamie Gittens came off the bench to score twice in the final 15 minutes to seal Borussia Dortmund a 3-0 win at Club Brugge in their Champions League opener. New Dortmund coach Nuri Sahin brought Gittens on as a substitute with 22 minutes remaining and the game goalless. The 20-year-old scored shortly after, his right foot shot looping over the head of the Club Brugge goalkeeper Simon Mignolet with the aid of a deflection. Again, coming off the left flank, Gittens blasted a low shot into the net to score his second with 4 minutes remaining, snuffing out Brugge's chance of a comeback. Sergio Guirassy won and converted a penalty in injury time to add gloss to the final score. Fans swarmed a car carrying former Manchester United forward Anthony Martial's arrival in Athens on Wednesday, where he is set to join Greek top-flight club AEK Athens. British media reported the 28-year-old has agreed to sign for the 13 times Greek champions on a free transfer and will earn £2.5 million per season, making him one of the AEK's highest earners. Jubilant fans welcomed the former France forward with songs and chants as his car struggled to get through the massive congregation of celebrating supporters. Martial won the Europa League and an FA Cup title at United, scoring 63 Premier League goals for the club in 209 appearances. The forward was let go by Manchester United earlier this summer, bringing an end to his 9-year stint at Old Trafford. Despite a promising start to life in England, injuries and a serious drop in form ensured the last few seasons of Martial's time with the Red Devils were hugely disappointing. AEK, who also signed former Tottenham Hotspur and Sevilla midfielder Eric Lamela in the summer, are top of the Super League Greece with 10 points from 4 matches ahead of visiting Kallithea on Sunday. A former Italy and Juventus striker Salvatore Schillaci, a star of the 1990 World Cup on his home soil, has died at the age of 59. Schillaci led Italy to their third-place finish in 1990, winning the Golden Boot for his 6 goals during the tournament, including in the semi-final against Argentina and their third-place victory over England. He had started Italy's opening World Cup game as a substitute, but came off the bench to score the winner in a 1-0 victory over Austria. After the excitement of 1990, Schillaci scored only 1 more goal for Italy and did not appear for them at any other major tournaments. A small, bustling striker, Schillaci, nicknamed Toto, had been a late developer, spending the early years of his career playing in the lower leagues for Sicilian club Messina. He was the top scorer in Serie B, the Italian second division, in 1988 to 1989, earning him a move to Serie A giants Juventus. Schillaci helped Juventus to claim the Coppa Italia in UEFA Cup in 1989 to 1990, before winning the later trophy again 4 years later with Inter Milan. He then became the first Italian player to play in Japan's J-League and won the league title with his club, Jubilo Iwata, in 1997. He retired from football in 1999. Britain clinched a 5-2 semi-final win over Switzerland in the America's Cup Challenger Series to secure a place in the Louis Vuitton Cup final in Barcelona. Britain under skipper Ben Ainsley had raced to a 4-0 lead, but the less experienced Swiss crew won a reprieve on Monday. The Swiss had looked set to cause another upset when they beat the British in the first race on Wednesday, narrowing the gap to 4-2. But they could not capitalise on their improving form in the second race in tricky conditions. In another semi-final, the United States kept their hopes alive with a crucial win over Italy, who suffered dramatic equipment failure during their second race of the day. The United States are now on 3 wins, with Italy on 4 in the first to 5 semi-final. Whoever wins will face Britain in the final at the end of the match. The winner of the Louis Vuitton Cup then gets to challenge defenders New Zealand for the coveted old mug, which dates back to 1851 and is the oldest international sporting trophy.
At least 2 or 3 of them felt like we had within our grasp.
Right, so that wraps up this edition of World Today. In our top story, second wave of device explosions killed 20 in Lebanon. Join us again tonight at 8:30 p.m. on saluran Berita RTM and TV1 for more news updates. You can also stream us online through RTM's Click app. Till then, I'm Shuhaida Arifin, Malaysia Madani from River to the Sea. Palestine will be free. Goodbye for now.